Let's call to order this regularly scheduled City Commission meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Here.
Mayor Petrilla?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any amendments to the agenda as proposed?
I'd like to add, if I could, a discussion item. I wanted to see if we wanted to, as a group, maybe discuss some parameters for the hearing next week for the Serrata and whether or not we want to, maybe put some bookends on various presentations as far as time and that sort of thing.
Just a word of caution, that is a quasi-judicial hearing, and maybe that type of discussion is better had at the beginning of the meeting, since the parties that are a party to that application will be there and be able to have the opportunity to object if they want to.
So better to do it then rather than to do something ahead of time so they have more time to know what we're thinking, or?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that I don't know how deep into the discussion you want to go today. If it was just like a general
Just a general
topic?
discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. If we get too deep into it, then I'd suggest that we table it and pick it up during the hearing so that everybody's able to do that.
Okay.
So I think you're just talking about logistics, maybe?
Yeah, we can call it that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the very least, we can go over the game plan with Ginny and see how it goes.
Yep.
All right, anyone else?
Nope.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Seconded.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have any audience comments?
We do have one general comment, Richard Kane.
All right, if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Kane, 749 59th Avenue, St. Pete Beach, Florida. Before you start, just thank you all for serving our community. Appreciate that. And just, I don't know, full disclosure, I'm a neighbor of Adrian's, just live up that way. All right, so I just want to put in front of you as a resident, we've tried to approach the city about a problem we have with our seawall, and I just want you to become aware of that. And my neighbor, Manny's not here tonight, kind of represent him also. Really like to find a way to work this out constructively, just through conversation. And we think that's, you're all here serving, want to appreciate that and respect that. We asked the city to inspect the culvert that runs on the border of the property between Manny and myself, and then goes through our seawall. If I have a visual, I don't know what you want to do with that.
So right there between the rectangles.
And that goes. There you go. So that's just supposed to show you, the seawall is in generally good condition. I have an engineering report that also shows that the seawall is in generally good condition. And then where that line is, that's the culvert. And you can see right above the culvert, you see that piece of the seawall that essentially is falling out there. And then the engineering report continues to say that, the seawall is basically solid until you get to this point where, and Manny's wall that goes off to the right, is in the same shape. It's a solid wall, no problems, until coincidentally, again, it gets to where the culvert is. We asked the city to inspect. It took 3 months for the city to come out and to inspect. And I could paraphrase a comment here from the report that said basically, you know, there is nothing wrong with the seawall. And the inspection then provided this picture of what's supposed to be our culvert, and that picture is actually dated, July 25th. And then, since I know I only have 54 seconds left, three days later, okay, this is a picture of going to the end of the seawall and looking into it. So I'm just willing to say somebody gave whoever from the city, you know, documented this and said, this is the pipe that Mr. Kane is complaining about, and its report from the city says is clear. Look at that beautiful, clear pipe. Well, I mean, this is the actual pipe. And in my 18 seconds that are left, if you actually go in and look, you can see that the pipe is clearly cracked. It's cracked to the point that there are plants growing through the culvert from the sides, you know, into the pipe. You can see the crack there. And with my time being up, simply saying, right where those cracks are, above that is where the land washes away, where the seawall has started to collapse, and my seawall, as you see here, has a severe crack just in the cap. And so again, I just approached to say, I just think the city probably has some responsibility here. You know, my seawall is basically intact, except for this one spot. I'm not looking for a free ride. Manny's not looking for a free ride, but we could all work together. The engineering report suggests replacing 6 feet of the cap on each side of, you know, that center point. That's all. And instead of getting a report that shows some crystal clean pipe and that there's nothing wrong, I just don't think that's an accurate depiction of the situation. I know I'm over time. I apologize. I'll just leave this the engineering report is in. Let me reorganize it and hand it back to you, since I've made a mess of it now. The engineering report's in here, et cetera, okay?
Thank you, Dick.
You ask any
City-
questions, or?
We may. City Manager, do you have any information on this?
I don't have any information, but I'll certainly look into it and see what we can do.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind sending me an email, CCing the City Manager, and then we'll make sure we get a follow-up and a response to you.
It's great. I mean, you know, that's why we all live here. We love it. Thank you for helping. Thank you for serving.
Thank you, sir. Jenny, do we have any other audience comments?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, next, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Feltz,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have action item 4A, 7th and 8th Avenue alleyway redesign.
Mr. Clark?
Mike Clark, Public Works Director. This alleyway section, and it's a T-shape. There's a north-south alley that runs behind the commercial properties, and then there's an east-west alley that runs down to service additional commercial properties and some private properties. Has been in disrepair for, I'm going to go before I got here, going back a decade or longer. And partially is due to, it's a shell alleyway, and partially it's due to the usage. It's a very heavily trafficked alleyway, delivery trucks, garbage trucks, a lot of personal vehicles, a lot of businesses in there. A lot of folks visit that area. As you all know, 8th Avenue is one of our hotspot tourist areas. So we have been looking forward to bringing this alley into a much better condition that will withstand the usage, provide the people who use that alley with a safer, wider, smoother passageway, and manage the stormwater runoff that flows through there. It's quite significant. There have been a couple of pipe breaks in the recent month or so that have really shown us that our stormwater management needs to improve through there. There's a lot of vegetative growth, there's a lot of encroachment, a lot of issues going on. And so we're very pleased to bring this proposal to you so that we can get into the design of what's the best way to make this alley functional for all uses.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike?
No, I just wanted to say, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you doing that because that is a heavily traveled alley next to the Hurricane and behind the Keystone. That's probably the second most heavily traveled. And yeah, it's pretty bad back there. So I think that's a great project.
Mm-hmm.
So,
City Clerk, do we have any audience comments?
Not on this item.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'll make a motion to approve the task order with Health Associates. Oh, I'm sorry, we have comments? Nope.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have action item 4B, Florida Department of Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant Program.
Mr. Clark, thank you. Actually, this item B and item C sort of go hand in hand, so Mike, you can probably talk about both of them if you'd like.
Be happy to. The first one is the hazard mitigation grant for the design of the seawall replacement along the Recreation Center and Haran Park. And interestingly enough, the grant program for construction of these kinds of projects kind of ran right behind the grant program for design, so we applied immediately for the construction portion of this project, and we were awarded that grant also. So we have a very interesting situation that I have not seen before, where we have both the design and the construction for a project covered by grants before we even start the project. So we're very pleased with that situation.
Mike, it's my understanding the construction grant is a 50-50 grant.
It's a 50-50 match. Our 50% has been identified.
Thank you.
This will be a gray-green seawall. We envision some living shoreline aspects to it, similar to some other projects. It will bring the cap elevation up to 5 feet, which is our code. In the last couple of storms, Haran Park has been completely inundated. And this particular area is a water gateway straight into the municipal governance of the city, the historic downtown section of the city, and the adjacent neighborhoods of the city, to include some very significant infrastructure run by Duke Energy. And so protecting this particular location is a very significant step for our resiliency program so that we can remain continuing operations during our hazardous flooding events. There is coral along the seawall, so if anybody is a coral enthusiast, pick a low tide and go visit the seawall, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with the different varieties of coral that are there. And so there will be a coral management aspect to this project. And the regulations and such that cover coral are more like reading the yellow pages of an old telephone book. But we'll work our way through that also.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike?
I do have a quick question, Mike, if you don't mind. Sorry, catch you before you sit back down. The seawall that's underneath the causeway, that's not part of the program. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have an adjoining property line with FDOT.
Okay. And is that seawall the same height as ours? I mean, once we raise ours, is water just going to come up over the seawall under the causeway and run right back around, or is it not sloped that direction?
We'll be working with the DOT as we move through the design.
Okay. All right. And then if you could indulge my ignorance, for the living shoreline portion of the thing, which I'm sure will become more clear in the design, but does that doesn't move the seawall landward or seaward? The seawall stays where it is?
It'll be a little bit of a combination of the both, I think.
Okay.
We may move seaward a little bit, but the waters of the United States, typically we don't want to do that because the permitting issues are significant, so we may want to move landward. We also, because it's adjacency to Haran Park, I inserted a comment in there about education and being able to have the public be able to continue to view the boat parade for the annual boat parade, the Christmas parade. And I think there's an opportunity here for us to be leading the region in this. This is a visionary project utilizing all the latest technology that we can bring forth. It should be something that other regions, other folks will come and see what we're doing, and they will learn from that as we move forward through this project. And that's part of the intent of this project. It's cutting edge, and it's going to be a project of beautiful magnificence and invisible defense.
I like your confidence, thank you.
And Mike, is this coming out of an allocated portion of our budget, or is this a new item?
No, this was an allocated portion of our budget.
Okay. Any further questions for Mike? Trini, do you have any audience comments?
Not on this item.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, do we have a motion for 4B?
I'll make a motion to approve 4B for the mitigation grant program.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. Do we have a motion for item 4C?
Mayor, if I may, real quick, Matthew McConnell, Assistant City Attorney. For 4C, we got an Exhibit J after the agenda was published. It was handed out to you all before, so I just want to make it clear that the motion to approve that agreement will include that exhibit, one page in front of you.
And would you mind elaborating on what this is?
Yeah.
It's just part of the overall packet. Mr. Warner in Public Works got it 2 days ago and then sent it to us, and it was our decision to walk it on, so that's part of the full agreement. It just was not part of what was sent to us by the state. It was kind of a last minute.
Sure, I guess to clarify, what does this say? Because I don't understand what it says.
Not a problem. Let me just pull it up real quick.
Thank you.
So this will be signed by the contractor that we get under contract. It's not signed by us, but it's something that will be facilitated to the state that will be signed by the contractor that we utilized for this project.
And is it correct that this is like state mandated language that must be in a contract, or is it just recommended language, or is it language that's part of the grant, the requirement of the grant, or?
So these grant agreements, and Andrew and I, we learned early on, amending state grant agreements is usually unrealistic. So what we do as the city attorney is we review it, we highlight deadlines, we confirm due dates, compliance requirements, things that we're going to have to do in order for us to actually get reimbursed. But to answer your question, yes, it's almost, when you're dealing with state grant agreements, it's almost like a take it or leave it situation. There isn't really much pushback. It's more just notifying the city of, hey, in 20 days, make sure you do this. In order to get paid back, do this, so that we're all on the same page with how to actually get reimbursed.
Right.
And this is just an attestation by the contractor that they're not going to be knowingly bringing in unauthorized aliens. It's under Florida Statute 908. It's a standard legal requirement of the grants. So it was just, didn't make it into the packet in time on Thursday when everything went out. So it's better to make it known to you all in the public here today.
Yeah. And to that point, we have a similar provision in our local government agreement template, chapter 400, that talks about employment eligibility and making sure that you have to go through the certain website to ensure that all your employees are citizens.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion for item 4C?
I've got a question, actually, Mike. To Commissioner Marriott's question about underneath the Quarry Causeway, that seawall. Whose seawall does that, who does that belong to?
It belongs to the FDOT.
Okay. And then it's a private seawall,
On the
this side
private,
of it?
as the private properties abut the Quarry Causeway.
Yep.
So on the other side, I believe the Blue Parrot's there. I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
who that owner is, but on our side, it's Rand Park.
And then there's another small portion of the cities at the end of that road.
End of Quarry, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yes, at the end of Quarry Avenue, where the old bridge was, is still a city seawall.
Okay, understood. I was just looking at the image on page 160, showing it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the Resilient Florida grant for the community center in Haran Park seawall construction.
I second that.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott,
Yes.
Commissioner Phelps,
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have item 5A, an update on Pastor Girl Alleyway garbage pickup. Mike, are you up again?
I think this is the Mike Clark show tonight.
It is, logging 90% of the time.
Well, one way of looking at that is Public Works is making progress on the infrastructure of the city to improve the quality of life for everybody. So I kind of enjoy that. And I kind of enjoyed bringing this update to you all. I'd like to thank Commissioner Lorenzen for taking time to drive through the alley system with myself and Waste Connections representatives to lay eyes on the alleys that we believe are ones that we can get back into and return service as it was fairly quickly. And so we were in a pickup truck today, and in that pickup truck, there were items that we noticed through the alley system. The alleys that we're talking about are from 22nd Avenue on the west side south to 16th Avenue at the park. It's a straight shot down. And if you look, you can look down it. It looks like a bowling alley, and it's very enticing. It makes you want to go right away. Oh yeah, we're there. But I grew up when Donald Rumsfeld was around, and he has his knowns. You know what you know what you don't know, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So tomorrow, I'm going to be going back again, this time with an actual garbage truck with the Waste Connections operators, and we're going to run that truck through the alley. And we're going to make double sure that the operators are going to be able to do what they need to do in a safe and efficient manner, not placing anybody else's infrastructure, vehicles, or anything else at risk, in addition to not placing themselves or their equipment at risk. If there is anything that we didn't notice today in the pickup truck, then we'll pick up on that, and we'll work with the property owners on what that issue is and try to get it resolved. If it's a utility issue, I'll work it on my side with the other utility providers. I look forward to bringing back another update if the commission desires at the very next meeting to let you know how that went and exactly what the plan is based on the findings of tomorrow morning. And I fully expect that I'll be bringing good news, I hope, but I want to be certain before I say that. Otherwise, it's like, well, you said this and you didn't do that. I want to be certain with you and the public as to what we can do and then how fast and how quickly we can do it and where we're going to be able to do it. Following that, assuming we have good news, then we will send a notification letter to each impacted property owner that will be restored to normal service as it was. They'll get a notification as to the exact day that that's going to start. If you do not get a letter, then you will not be part of this particular phase, which brings me to the potential for the next phase, and there will be the next phase. There may be times once we get back into this, it is still tight. And garbage trucks don't make tight turns very well. So we may be losing some parking spaces. I don't think a lot, but maybe a few. And if there is an unforeseen circumstance during a collection day where a contractor or a neighbor or something has taken place that blocks the alleyway and the truck can't get down, then there will be a non-service for that section of the route. The trucks cannot maneuver. They'll have to back out, and they'll have to get out and move on. We don't expect that to happen very often. We have absolutely no idea what those unknowns will be. I just want to make it clear that when it does happen, it will be a circumstance that was unforeseen, but we will have an escape plan, so to speak, for the vehicle to get out of harm's way and move on for the rest of the collection route that day. So in summary, I look forward to seeing you, if you would like, at the very next commission meeting to give you this update, hopefully with a schedule, an exact schedule of what's going to happen with the addresses that will take place.
Thank you, Mike. And then what's kind of the game plan for the next phases? So are we taking it one chunk at a time, or how are we breaking it up?
Before I answer that question, I did want to say that we also have one commercial business that we will be restoring to service as it was prior to the change. And so we'll be getting with that particular commercial business individually, tomorrow or tonight. In the next group of phases, I think as I walk tomorrow, based on our ride this afternoon, and I'll talk with Commissioner Lorenzen some more about this, there are some significant challenges out there. And I think that with the remaining alleyways, I'd like to hope, and I know hope is not a method, but I'd like to hope that we could probably target the next 1/3 of the ones remaining, and kind of a similar process, and then really zero in on the ones that perhaps we may never be able to get back into without some significant movement. So I see maybe 3 phases remaining. The next phase, that will be fairly difficult but doable with the assistance of the homeowners and other utility providers. A phase that will be very, very difficult but doable in a long-term proposal. We're moving things. And then maybe a couple, maybe a handful at the most, that we're just going to have to say, you know what, we can't make this happen, and this is the obstacle and the reason why. And at that point, we continue to have the conversation all the way through, challenging ourselves to make sure that what we are doing is true, correct, and in the best interest of everybody.
And this, when looking at, in particular, 8th Avenue and the businesses over there, I think one of the challenges, well, several of the challenges that were brought up is, one, the aesthetics of it, with that being, the main retail area for Pass or Grow, and it's just not looking attractive because the trash cans have to go out the night before when the business closes at 5 or 6, and they're sitting out there overnight, and then they're half the day maybe. Is 8th Avenue somewhere in we'll get to it and we'll get it done, or are we looking at this is an area where, God help us, we'll never get it?
I think part of 8th Avenue is my conversation about the business that will return to normal very, very, very soon. Mm-hmm. I have some work to do on my side with roadway management. And then the 7th and 8th Alley project will hopefully alleviate a lot more of that, granting us access to alley businesses that are on the south side of 8th Avenue. Mm-hmm. That we're just physically unable to get to right now. So part of that project that we presented earlier today is the movement of the garbage vehicles and where the containers can be. We need to work with our property owners back there. The placement's not good. There's a lot that could happen that could improve the aesthetics, the operations, the maneuverability, all of that, the pedestrian transportation experience. All of that can be improved, and we're hoping that the vehicle for improvement will be the design process that we were going to go through.
So you're hopeful that we'll be able at some point to restore service for all of 8th Avenue off the main street?
I don't see a reason why that's not possible.
Okay.
But we have a lot of work to do.
Sure. Absolutely. Any questions for Mike?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Mike, first of all, I appreciate you and Wayne kind of opening this back up and being flexible, because it's a big issue for Pass the Grill, obviously District 4. And I appreciate you letting me do the ride-along today. It was an eye-opener in some cases. In other cases, we talked it over, and I think this is an excellent plan going forward, kind of a 3-phase approach. And I think if I'm hearing you correctly, we're talking weeks, not months, for at least the first phase.
First phase is weeks,
Okay.
Barring any unknown that just jumps out at us and says, hey.
It's funny, we drove around today, and you get a different perspective when you go to turn up an alley, and all of a sudden, there's a truck there with a 100-foot crane cutting down a tree, and you're like, well, can't get down that alley to do the garbage, and there's nothing the guys can do about it on those weird days. That's something where the residents got to work together on that street to make sure they don't block it on garbage days. But I think it's an excellent plan going forward, and I think we're going to get there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
Oh, Mayor, one last thing. Thanks to the gentleman from the company that rode along with us. Appreciate your time.
All right. Jenny, do we have any audience comments?
We do. Bill Lowry.
If you would like to make a comment, just grab a
very
comment
brief.
card from the back, fill it out, then please give it to the city clerk.
Bill Lowry, 2405 Pastoral Girl Way, and I don't live on an alley, just so you'll understand that, okay? But I've just pointed out, next week will be 6 months, and so it's been quite a while that we've gone through this. I think we could have dealt with it in the beginning a lot better, so you wouldn't have citizens put out for these 6 months. I'd also point out that what Mr. Clark has proposed, and it's great, we're moving forward, I got no objection to any of that. We're talking essentially 6 blocks out of 44 blocks, because each block basically is 2. There's an east and a west alley. And so that's not a whole lot, and I would just hope at the next meeting, which if you can come in and has good news, I've walked those alleys many, many times, that maybe we could get some sort of a schedule about these other phases, because I'm just concerned that as time goes on, you know, like I said, it's been 6 months already, and I would just like it obviously to keep moving. But I'm encouraged by what I've heard today, and thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have any other audience comments?
Amy Lowry.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Amy Lowry, 102 19th Avenue, St. Pete Beach. I just spoke with Mike. It looks like Rich and Mike have worked out something great for me in the historic area on 8th Avenue. Much appreciated your time and efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also Pat Lopez.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Pat Lopez, 1005 Gulf Way. We're in between 10th and 11th, and I was wondering if I could ask Mike, is he here still? Have you gone down that alley? Do you know?
I have, and I will again.
Okay. It just seems like if the neighbors were informed that there might be some cleanup that was necessary, some tree trimming that was necessary, and cars are parked where they really shouldn't be parked. And I think if everyone conformed to what was needed, it wouldn't be a problem. I live in Hyde Park in Tampa, and we have very narrow alleys, and it's not a problem. And that's one of the reasons why we bought in Paso Grill. And just making the corner, there's a big bush that's in the way. It's minor things. But if maybe a letter could go out to everyone and ask them to please trim back their bushes, their hedges, their trees. And keep in mind, it's for the alley pickup, because I know everyone is for it. When we come to visit the house, we have to plan our trip around taking the garbage back and forth. That's ridiculous. And now the season with all the tourists that are, you know, the snowbirds that are coming, they don't like to schlep their garbage, 4 houses down to the end of the street. They're older people, and they come here to relax and enjoy our weather and the beauty and historic ambiance of the neighborhood. And it just looks awful and feels awful. And it's really, encumbrance to them. They don't like it. But thank you, and thank you, Mike, for the work and the good report so far. And I hope you have a good report for my alley soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlos Lopez.
You don't have to if you don't want to. She can't make you talk. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Carlos N. Lopez, 1005 Goldway.
I just say everything I have to say, really. I have nothing else to say, just that what I see people parking in the alley all the time that they shouldn't be parking. If you don't have a parking space in your house, you should park on the street, not in the alley. Other thing that is important, right in my block, there are big trees sticking out, even part of palm trees, that they are really obstructing the pathway. If we just do that, we should be able to keep going to the way that it was. Just normal pickup. You don't have to work. You know, we had in our house, we had a space just for the trash cans. So, as I just say, we live in Tampa. We come here. Most of the time, we come for a month, for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. We never had a problem before, so I think that we live in Hyde Park. The alleys are smaller than these alleys. These alleys are big. They should be able to be used for what it is. People have said, everybody say how ugly it to have a trash can, big trash can, 5, 6, right there. But we live next to the park, so we have to put it close to the park at night. And then, okay, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you so much. Well, Mike, we appreciate the report. We appreciate you diligently sticking to it. And gentlemen, appreciate you coming by again. And look forward to seeing you again next time. Okay, next we have item 5B, a review of the lobbyist contact logs. So I brought this item up for discussion, to be added to the discussion agenda at the last commission meeting. And so, per city ordinance, am I correct? It's a city ordinance, correct?
Yeah, it is a city ordinance,
Okay,
yes.
so per city ordinance, certain staff members, commission members, board members are required to fill out a lobby contact form at the beginning of every quarter for the previous quarter. And it is specifically designed to disclose any communication they may have had with lobbyists that are registered with the city. Part of that is to, again, just to disclose what meetings you've had, who you've met with, looking at the commission, looking at the Board of Adjustment, looking at the planning board. These are boards and bodies that make far-reaching decisions that, some of them can have, impacts for decades on the city. And one of the things that came to my attention in the last year is that there are several individuals on the boards, in particular, that are not filling out the lobby registration forms. So to give you an example, commissioners, you all have a copy of the Q3 and Q4 report from last year, and we have Melinda Pletcher, who did not fill out a Q3 report, did not fill out a Q4 report, and during that same time frame, she had hearings, for example, for the Serrata conditional use application. And going back and watching that video during the ex parte disclosures in the beginning of the meeting, where we're all supposed to say who we met with, who we talked with, what we reviewed, what we looked at, she said, I read the comprehensive plan and the land development code. That's it. And no report filled out for Q2 or Q3. So we have no idea who she's meeting with, making these and then making decisions. And then the same thing, we have another one, and this one's probably even more distressing, is that we have the chairman of the planning board, who also presided over that particular meeting with the Serrata conditional use application, and we don't have a Q4 report for that individual either. These are, I don't know how else to put it, this is a violation of the city ordinance. And you would think that somebody who's appointed to a board as important as the Board of Adjustment or Planning Board, that they would take something as simple as taking 5 minutes, writing down who they met with, and submitting that to the city clerk. The city clerk does send out one reminder, which Again, anybody can use a calendar, you can put that on your thing, on your calendar for a reminder. And so I think one of the challenges with the ordinance is that maybe, I think this is something that Matthew, Assistant City Attorney Matthew McConnell looked at last year with Amber, is that this particular ordinance may not necessarily have any teeth to it, right? There was no consequences from what we could tell. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss with the commissioners is, okay, what do we do with individuals that are continuously failing to disclose their conversations with lobbyists?
Well, I am proud to say that I heeded your warning last time around, and 2 of my 3 came through, but we have one that's no longer on the planning board, as you mentioned, that despite my emails, I have not seen it yet. So but I hear what you're saying, Mayor, loud and clear.
No, I appreciate that effort. I guess what I want to find out is, like, what do you think we should do in situations like this? I mean, again, we have the presiding chair of a board, a very important board that, you know, I'm not saying he's hiding anything. It's just, it should be a simple fill out the form, submit the form, so that we all have it for the record. What do we do in this situation? Because it's been now, today's what, the 13th, right? So the individuals had 32 days past the deadline. 42 days, sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure what we can do to folks that are no longer on there. I mean, we could consider it might be too cumbersome to amend the charter to say, hey, if 90 days pass after you've been asked to do it, you know, you're off the, whatever, I don't know, you're off the board, or I don't think we're going to levy a fine, but just thoughts.
And I apologize for my ignorance on when did this began in the last year, is that correct? Do we only have Q2 and Q3 because, or did it start the beginning of last?
This was in February of 2022 was the law was enacted. And so this specifically, record-keeping responsibilities is under Section 2-21. That's for city commissioners, board members, committee members, and city employees. So it's the folks that would be lobbied, not the lobbyists. The lobbyists have a different responsibility.
Right. So the reporting requirement began in 2022?
It was effective September 2022.
Okay, so the first quarter that would have been reported on would have been the fourth quarter of 2022?
I think so, unless there was like an effective date. Maybe they started, I know the first full years would have been 2023.
Okay.
This is a what I look at as a 1.0 version of the lobbyist ordinance. We didn't have a lobbyist mechanism in place at all at the city. So, you know, like all laws, you know, they can be refined as you go along and you find situations that happen like this. You can, it's, yeah, I don't know how punitive you want to be. I don't think these are very complicated forms to fill out. And the process only works if everybody participates.
I mean, it does seem like, I mean, I think I'm correct in that if you miss, you know, there's some number of meetings that if you miss, you're automatically removed from the board.
If you have 3 consecutive.
3 consecutive. So you know, again, I don't know how immediately punitive it should be, but you know, it could certainly be something similar. You know, if you miss, you know, consecutive, or if you're, you know, I don't know what the, I certainly don't claim to know what the right answer is as far as that. I think anybody can have life happen and miss one here and there, not for any nefarious reason. But certainly, I think we want to encourage people to like you say, it only works if people participate in the reporting.
So the only thing here, I mean, you've got board members and committee members. Those are, they work under you all. I see them as different as city employees because you want to be careful about being punitive against city employees because there's a whole personnel rules and regulations and procedures and things like that. So whatever you come up with, I mean, obviously the easiest one is for board members and committee members because they're appointed by you all and work for you all, and they're considered public officials.
So kind of board member, so, and again, I apologize for not knowing all the details of this, but if any one of us has appointed a board member for a term of 2 years, can we also remove them from that board in that, and like, does there have to be reasons for that, or?
Yeah, so there's, we can look at that. Each board is described under Chapter 22, I believe it is. Chapter 22 of the Code of Ordinances, and each one has their own powers and duties and also removal from office type language to it. And usually that's attached to attendance. You know, if you miss a certain number of days, you can be removed, but there's no reason why you can't add language that's either to each one of these boards and committees or do it in the lobbyist section, which I'd probably prefer. But again, I'd like to parse out the difference between, because this city employees, you don't have authority over. The city manager does.
I mean, I would be inclined to ask for something along the lines of, if you don't fill out the lobbyist report, and remember, it's not like a meeting where you missed it and you can't make it up, right?
Right.
If you missed the meeting, well, you can't come back tomorrow and be like, oh. But with the lobbyist report, it's due by the 10th of the next quarter, of the next month. So it's due on April 10th. You have, so today, it was due on January 10th. You had the 11th, the 12th. You had 31 days after it was due. You could have just turned it in. It would have been late, but it would have been in. And my concern is with waiting too long, you could never submit it, right? And then you could be 60 days, 90 days, forever in this situation. We have two individuals where Q3 hasn't been submitted, and that was due in September 10th, right? I mean, I would propose something along the lines of, if you miss your lobbyist report, you may not participate in the meetings until such time that you complete your lobbyist report, which then would also trigger what you were referring
Right,
to.
'cause then if you miss
is
3
if you don't
meetings.
fill out the report, you're not allowed to participate. You miss 3 meetings, right? Then you're automatically removed from the board. And one of the reasons that I would propose that is, again, it's the old bad apple scenario, right? That's the problem. We're not expecting anyone to do anything, but, you know, it removes it also where if we have a situation where for some reason, you know, that was like the commissioner's favorite buddy, right? You can't just keep that person on. That person will be removed if they do not comply with the city ordinances in due time. But it's especially preventing them from participating and making those decisions. So if you have, again, because we have, from what I see on the schedule, at least one very big project coming before the planning board in the next few weeks, and that's the trade winds, right? And I think if you haven't filled out your lobbyist report, now I have questions. Well, how come?
So it's interesting when you look at, like, they all have different languages when you look under the board. So under planning board, it says basically you're at the pleasure of the commissioner that appointed you. But then when you look at, for example, the board of or the beach stewardship, members of the beach stewardship committee shall be subject to removal by office by commission or for nonfeasance, malfeasance, misfeasance, and other good cause shown by the city commission. So each one of them, they don't have consistent language, so it's almost easier to drop something into the lobbyist ordinance that covers everything.
Right.
than having to go through each one and adding stuff.
Thoughts?
So that would be the mechanism then, would be the lobbyists?
Yeah, I think we can come up with some language if you like. I mean, if the commission directs us, we can come up with some language that puts some more teeth into this. I think it's ready for the 2.0 version right now. I mean, it's a couple years old, and I think we worked out the kinks a little bit. And yeah, we can bring back within 2 weeks if you want some language or whatever you. If I don't know if when we have time, but we'll bring back some language that we could put in there that will help your committees.
Excuse my ignorance, to use your phrase on this one. Is that lobbyist ordinance part of the charter, or is that a separate
It's
document?
not in the charter. It's a code of ordinances. So all you would have to do is we would just draft an ordinance, and it would have 2 public hearings, and it would become part of the codes. So the charter is something that can only be, with a few exceptions,
That's right.
only be amended by referendum, whereas your code of ordinances can be done by code.
Yeah, I agree with amending the ordinance as applicable, and we just got to decide what that is. So it's 30 days or 60 days that triggers the non-attendance, but I'd be good with that.
Well, as opposed to the day thing, to the mayor's point about, you still have a chance to fill it out before the next meeting. But if you don't fill it out, you can't attend the meeting, which then would trigger the
Right, which I don't think, which isn't consistent amongst all the boards. Is that what you're saying, Andrew, that
Well,
missing 3 meetings is not necessarily a consistent thing across all the boards?
the 3 meetings is.
It is,
But I'm just saying that the
there's
planning
not-
board's really straightforward. Like you
Okay.
work at the pleasure of the commissioner that appointed you, which tells me that you can,
remove
if you're
them.
not happy with your appointee, you can remove them and appoint someone else.
Yep.
But the other one, like Board of Adjustments, might be different. I haven't looked through all of them yet.
Yeah.
But I can come back with some language that would be a little bit more, compelling people to participate. I mean, by and large, I get it. It is unfortunate, but it seems like a lot of people are participating.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that there's a few that aren't, and so.
Well, and
You look at the glass half full glass, but it is something that you want people in certain boards, like the planning board, the Board of Adjustment. Those are really key boards that make decisions, and you want that.
Well, and I think that as important as anything else is making sure there's not even the appearance of something untoward happening. I tend to believe the best in people, and so my assumption would be that they're not hiding anything, but that wouldn't be everyone's assumption, and so I think that's what we want to, if you have something like this in place, you don't even want to give the appearance that something is happening that shouldn't be happening. So I think I totally agree. I think that not allowing them to participate in a meeting until they've filled out the form seems totally reasonable, and that gives them ample time to correct if they missed a deadline or made a mistake or got busy, or I don't see any. I do not yet see any unintended consequences of that.
So there, we can have some language in there that says, for appointees of the commission on committees or boards, you'll be given a warning, and if you don't cure that within a certain period of time, then you'll be precluded from attending a meeting until you comply with the lobbyist reporting. Seems pretty straightforward. Do give them a chance to cure the warning.
And the enforcement trigger on that would probably be the city clerk, who runs the roster, having to send an email or whatever it is and notifying the appropriate commissioner or commissioners. Because that's going to be the one that does it.
Yeah.
Or notices it.
Yeah.
And just as a procedural thing, so when I submit my report, for example, I always ask the city clerk for a copy of it back by the 11th. And if there's any board members that I see that were appointed by me, they all get a phone call immediately. I'm just a recommendation for everybody else. That way, because it's a lot of things to put on Amber,
Yeah.
right? And most of us have a relationship, so it's a lot easier for me to pick up a phone than for Amber to send emails and wait and try to chase people down that we probably can access much quicker.
So I believe her intent was to give the report to you once a
Mhm.
quarter so that you can look at it and see.
Yep.
There you go.
Great. So are we all okay with providing direction to the city attorney to draft some language to amend that ordinance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right.
Jenny, I believe we have an audience comment. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Deborah Scheckner, Bogsega Isle, and St. Pete Beach. First of all, happy Valentine's Day tomorrow, in case anybody forgot. Go get those flowers tonight. With all due respect to our vice mayor, I think Melinda Pletcher must fill out that form because it was a very, very important vote that she had, and I would like to know if she spoke to anybody before that. And to me, I'd like them to fill it out almost as before each of their meetings when it's something important like a development issue, quasi-judicial. I think it's probably more important than we think because I want to know who you're talking to, where you're getting the information from, and I do believe before you have a vote, you also say, I talked to so-and-so resident, or I received these emails. So even as a board, beyond that, you're discussing who you spoke with as residents, not as lobbyists, because that's more official. So I would like to see Melinda Pletcher fill that form out. I think it's very, very important. And when you're talking about the planning board, that's the future of our city. And a lot is in contention right now, and I would like to see those reports, which I assume are put online for residents to see. I'm not sure.
Public records request.
So it would have to be public record. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Which I think segues nicely into the next discussion item. And if I may add one thought to the discussion for the next conditional use meeting, and also as it pertains to the planning board and their meetings for conditional use applications. If I may ask you to provide more detailed instructions as to what the ex parte disclosures should be. Just the reason is because I know on the last conditional use, I had 3 paragraphs personally, and then, to use Melinda Pletcher as an example, she said she read a comprehensive plan and the land development code, that's it. And then online, I'm reading from the same individual that I spoke to so-and-so, and I did this, and I read this. I'm like, thought that belonged in the ex parte disclosure. So I think it would be helpful for everyone to understand what they're supposed to be disclosing. So just to go along with whatever the plans we have for I would appreciate that very much.
Definitely do it, sir.
Yeah. Mr. City Manager, would you like to give us a quick rundown on what the game plan is for next week? And then, Commissioner, if you have any questions as a follow-up?
Yeah, we plan to follow the same scenario we had at the last special meeting. We'll be setting up the additional areas in the upstairs lobby, the upstairs conference room. If weather permits, we'll do the same thing outside, but basically the same setup as we had in the previous public hearing for that.
And the same with the numbered system for public
Yes.
speaking?
Yes, I think the clerks plan on using the same system as we had at the previous meeting.
And I think this came up at the last commission meeting, but somebody asked if anybody wants to provide a public comment, they will have to sign up again, correct?
That
We're
is
not going to
correct.
use the old.
So on our webpage in public meetings and then the submit public comment section, there's details there about how to make public comment.
And since we have the contact information for all the individuals that signed up to speak last time, did we by any chance send out an email to all of them saying, by the way, if you do want to speak again, please register again?
Yes, she did after the last meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
And just a note that that meeting will start at 4 p.m.
Correct.
I apologize. I had trouble hearing what you first asked, Mayor, about the sign-up cards or whatever. I couldn't hear all what you were saying.
After the last meeting, that was December 5th, where public comment was never gotten to, the clerk did email those people and let them know that they should resubmit public comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for anybody, if you want to speak, please register on the city clerk's page on the city website under public comments, and then you will receive a number, and then we will call those numbers in sequence.
Actually, if they sign up online, a request to speak, those people will be called in order that they submitted their request. And then, following that, if anybody submits a card, last time there were only maybe 5 cards, those will be called afterwards by number, and they turn in a card by 4 o'clock before the meeting starts.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my question is, you know, from watching the previous meeting, what I would like to know, and I guess this can be a discussion, because I know we shouldn't get into some specifics until the event, but to know what kind of what our options are, or what might be customary in things like this, because I am totally willing to sit here as long as it takes. You know, if it's 24 hours, I'm in. However, I don't know that any of us are thinking clearly or making good decisions, and I don't think it's fair to the community or to the residents to go through another 8 or 10 or 11 hours and then go, whew, this has been too long and we don't have time for this, and to postpone it again. Like, I just don't think we can do that. So I wanted to know what is customary and what are our options to, you know, like maybe put some bumpers or some guardrails on things to make sure that we get through being able to hear everyone who needs to be heard in a efficient fashion.
So I can speak to you just generally about the typical quasi-judicial hearing and my experiences, not just here, but all over the state with other different local governments. But the basic structure of it is you want to make sure that you understand who the parties are here. So the primary parties are the applicant and the city. And so what you'll hear is from, you always want to make sure that you hear from experts. You know, a lot of times you'll hear, I've been at local governments where the attorney, the land use attorney that's put together the team says nothing and just sort of like orchestrates their experts coming up. And then sometimes attorneys will get up and try to do the whole show, which is a big mistake because attorneys can't provide you competent, substantial evidence. You know, you want to hear from traffic engineers, architects, people who are experts. That being said, it's fairly customary to have a fairly general, succinct introduction by city staff, you know, giving you an overview of the request and any, you know, the staff report you'll have, and talk about the criteria. I mean, because they are also, your city staff are also considered experts in a quasi-judicial hearing, and any conditions or recommendations that they may have, they'll do that. So usually that's fairly succinct, but you also want to make sure that, you know, your city staff experts have the opportunity to do that, but that's generally fairly succinct. Then it's customary to also ask, it's not uncommon for a local government legislative body sitting in a quasi-judicial manner to to ask the applicant, how much time do you need? You know, how much time do you need to put on? They know how many experts they have that they want to put on, and you say, you know, counselor, how much time do you need? And then do you want to reserve time for rebuttal after public comment? And usually they'll say something like, I've got four, let's say 4 experts here, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, Miss, and then you say, okay, well, that sounds about like 25, 30 minutes. Why don't we go with that and then see where we are at that point? But it's important to make sure, that way you're putting a little bit of pressure on the applicant to like get to the meat of it, you know, to the actual experts who are going to be addressing whatever needs to be addressed. And that way you don't have a lot of stuff going on. Now, where it gets tricky is if somebody wants to examine a witness, you know, like if for example, hypothetically, let's say the local government's planner is recommending denial because of X, Y, and Z, you know, there are provisions under quasi-judicial procedures for the attorney to be able to examine, you know, that expert and ask questions of that expert. But generally speaking, I like to direct that kind of conversation through the mayor. You know, like, what questions would you like to ask, and just direct them through the mayor, so you're not like turning it into a full-blown courtroom, because it is quasi-judicial, it's not judicial, and try to keep it as general like that. The other trick to all this is not just the fact that you are allowing the public 3 minutes each, and you may have, depending on what hearing it is, you may have someone that has retained counsel or even experts that they feel like they feel like they're an affected party and that they want to have extra time. I have generally, in this capacity as city attorney, I've generally tried to afford or to recommend affording at least some extra time to people who have retained experts or an attorney, only because the code here at the city doesn't have any mechanism for determining whether somebody is an interested party or an affected party, which is different than the actual parties. Some cities actually have code language that says if you're within 1,000 feet or within the mail radius area, then you're considered an affected party, and they're immediately given a little bit more status. So I think that's just going to have to be a judgment call. And the way that I would recommend you always doing it is like have, you know, from a due process fairness point of view, have you given everybody their opportunity to speak? But it's also really important that you encourage everybody to speak to the criteria for approval. You know what I mean? It's a little hard with the general public, because, you know, you can listen to the general public's lay testimony, it's called, but it's not this, if it's fact-based and they actually are speaking from their own knowledge. But consider this a court of law almost, as quasi-judicial, you want to focus your attention on, you know, the expert testimony, not the legal arguments necessarily. There might be some legal arguments, who knows, but the expert testimony is what, you know, is really important. And if, you know, so hopefully that helps you a little bit.
Yeah, I think if I can paraphrase what I think you're telling me, is that so we can't really step into that meeting and go, all right, applicant, you got 2 hours, citizens, you get 2 hours, and that's the end of it. Instead, what we're all going to have to do is rely heavily on the mayor.
The mayor conducts the meetings, and you know, can ask you all, like, okay, but I think that it's proper to, you know, ask, the applicant, like, well, how much time do you need? Because you want to know, like, how many experts did they bring? They may bring none, or they may bring one, and then you have a better sense of how many people are here to speak, how many people have signed up. You'll be doing the math. So it is, there is a lot of burden on the mayor running the meeting, because he's sort of orchestrating this thing. So it is, it's a little more tricky than your typical meeting.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
And I hope this question is not taking us astray, but as far as the public, I've watched all the meetings going back the last 6 months, the ones that I was not at. And sometimes, for example, you might get 30 people that get up and say the same thing. It's almost like a chain email type of thing. Is there a way to economize that where I know we can only ask.
Yeah, you can ask. I've been at local governments where they politely ask, like, please don't, if you're going to repeat yourself, just say, I concur with that person, and don't get up and say the same thing over and over, or if it's an organization. And again, that it's tough, because it does fall on the chair of the board, or the mayor of the commission, to have to orchestrate all that. If somebody is, and I think we've even adopted rules, where someone can donate their time to other people to have more time, but so then you have to, like, keep track of, like, who did that, so so they don't, like, trick you and get up and speak even though they donated their time. So it's it puts a lot more pressure on the mayor. Unfortunately, Mayor, you're I mean, I'll do what I can, the clerk will as well, and to try to help, but yes, you can kind of lay out those rules, like, please don't, repeat yourself. I mean, I sit as a hearing examiner, for example, which is very much like a special magistrate, and I conduct these meetings all the time. And what I'll tell people is, please try to focus your comments on the specific issue at hand, on the criteria, and be succinct, because that's the most important thing for me to understand. Of course, you can say whatever you want, but it's going to be more impactful and more important if you focus it in on what the criteria is. So statements like that usually sometimes help, sometimes they don't.
I appreciate that, but it really boils down to their goodwill in a lot of ways, so that's a tough one.
Well, everybody wants to be heard, and they should be, they.
Of course.
That's it, but I also don't want it to last so long into the night that we're making bad decisions. So.
I think it's subtle. I think, if you feel like maybe an attorney is going long-winded, you can say, Counselor, do you have, if you have legal arguments, please make those legal arguments, but we really need to get to the experts,
Thank you.
I think we had a well-run meeting last time.
I think so.
Both from the standpoint of the staff organizing it, making sure that it was running very smoothly, everybody knew where they had to be. We had people out in the lobby, so I'm confident that if it's orchestrated in a similar fashion as last time, it should run smoothly.
Yep.
And that meeting started later, correct? That started at.
It started at 5.
Okay.
So it didn't start that much later.
A little later. Yeah.
I would venture to say, based on the 5 hours 45 minutes the planning board took, the 8 almost 9 hours at the city commission that the applicant alone took.
Yeah.
Right. That was not including public comments.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah.
And seeing how the package has grown since the December 5th meeting. I'm not going to bet any money on how long it's going to take, but I would venture to say that, and I'm not really inclined to, if the applicant wants to bring in witness after witness, I certainly want to hear from them. I don't want them to come back at any point saying you didn't give us enough time. The same thing goes for residents. I don't want to cut off their time. If you've got 3 minutes, take it. You want to speak on behalf of a group, take your 10 minutes. Want to bring in your experts, that's great. I think in the interest of making sure that everybody feels that they were heard. We give them the opportunity. You know, last time we got to 1:15, 1:30 in the morning, and we adjourned. There's no reason that we can't adjourn earlier, can't decide to stay if we want to stay until 4 a.m. I mean, those are all decisions that we can make at that time. But I certainly would not expect a short meeting or a fast meeting.
Clearly.
Which brings me to one other item for the city clerk, and so we received, if I say many emails, it wouldn't really quite capture how many emails, but it was a great many emails from residents, and those all went to the previous commissioners. The way that it is currently organized, you would not see them, and you would not find them.
They're all under that one link, correct?
They're under one link, and then that link then has 600 links underneath it, and
right.
you would have to individually download
Yeah.
every single one of them. I'm not sure that is, it would take me hours to download them if I didn't already have them in my inbox from when originally received. I think we need to find a way to get that information to the commissioners before the end of the week if possible, because so not only are there emails that say, hey, I'm in favor, I'm opposed to this, but there are emails that have traffic studies, engineering reports, all sorts of additional data that's in there. And that's all stuff that could come up at some point during the meeting. And if you haven't seen it, if you're not aware of it, so, I jokingly said last time it's 2,000 pages, and it is, because it's 800 and some odd pages from the application, plus another 1,000 plus emails and pages and whatnot else. And I'm not sure that asking the commissioners to individually download 600 files is, I don't know what can be done.
I haven't seen anything. Is this the meeting coming up?
For the Serato?
It's the emails from the past
The public
meetings.
comments.
The public comments that were submitted prior to the December
That are in
meeting.
just FOIA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think is what he's referencing.
You have to download each package, and I think the last time I checked, there was 500 or 600 links that you had
Right.
to click on.
Yes.
I don't know what the megabytes are, but couldn't you supply a flash drive to each one? And I don't know if it'll fit on one flash drive and just distribute that to the commissioners.
Mayor, we can work with our IT and the clerk's department to see how we can, if there's something we can do to it might be a thumb drive, or it might be another send to the new commissioners, but we'll work with IT and the clerk's office to see if we can do something to get that out.
Thank you. Okay. Any other discussion on this item? All right, next we have reports. City clerk.
Not tonight, thanks.
Thank you. City manager.
Just have one item that we talked with all of you last week about setting a date for the special meeting for the trade winds CUP, and I'd just like to set that officially at tonight's meeting, and we have April the 15th scheduled for that meeting. We'd like to start that meeting as early as possible. I know Commissioner Rosnicki sometimes has some conflicts with meeting earlier, but I believe that a 4 o'clock meeting works. So we'd like to at least tentatively go ahead and schedule 4 o'clock on April 15th for that special meeting.
Okay. I would like to make a request for that as well. I'm encouraged to hear Commissioner Lorenzen say that he spent time rewatching 6 months of meetings. We need more time for these packages. I mean, we received a package for Serato today at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever time it was. That gives us 1 week to read 2,000 pages, plus everything else. I mean, been at the previous meetings and at the planning board meetings, and so I've had the benefit of having a head start. I think we need to see that. I mean, I would like to see it at least, if possible, 10 days, if not 2 weeks in advance.
Okay, I'll work with our staff to see if we can certainly accomplish that.
Yeah, because from what I'm seeing, that's an even larger project with even more moving parts and potentially even more pages. So,
We'll try to make that happen, Mayor.
thank you. And then we also have, commission meetings before that, and that's a lot of stuff. Thank you. City Attorney?
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. District 4?
Oh, sorry. I think I have somebody to fill my planning board spot, but we're going to hopefully get that confirmed in a couple days. But if he decides not to do it due to his workload, please, I'm begging the public, if you got somebody who's interested in being on the planning board, I'm all ears. Hopefully this will work out. The meet and greet that I had last week went very well. I had about 13 or 14 people show up at Hurley Park, and I appreciate them coming, and it was across the spectrum, listening to all their comments, and I think that was a time well spent. On the good news side, the dog park at Hurley Park is now open officially this morning, so thank you to the Parks and Recs folks for getting that done. Also, for Paso Grill residents, there's going to be new lighting going in from 1st to 7th Avenue on the east side of Paso Grill Way. So residents have spoken, and Duke's getting around to that, so that's a win. And lastly, for Paso Grill residents from, I believe it's 9th Avenue to 22nd Avenue, you should be receiving notices from Pinellas County to have you sign a temporary right-of-way. They're going to be putting in those digital electronic water meters, and that's going to entail some lateral water lines getting renovated, maybe some mains here and there. But please, residents, be on the lookout for that, because if you don't sign that form, you leave it up to Pinellas County to decide where they put that water meter in. And as I understand the letter, if you don't sign it, they'll put it where they want to put it, and then you're going to be in charge of connecting your home to that water meter. So please sign that, or take a good look at it and make a decision. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. District 2?
Yes, there's going to be a block party for Three Palms Points. We got some time for it, April 6th, for people who live in Three Palms Point. Just want to bring that up. And then also, I'm looking to fill a spot on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. If anyone is interested in that, please contact me. That's it.
Thank you. District 1?
Sure, thank you. So in District 1, the undergrounding of utilities in the North Beach, undergrounding of the electric in North Beach neighborhood is almost wrapping up. I think most of the houses are now connected, and there's fewer and fewer trucks in the street every day, and so that's been great. And I know that in the last reasonable sized storm we had, where lots of people on St. Pete Beach lost power, our neighborhood didn't. So I think it's going to be worth all the drama. So that's been good. Also, I had the pleasure of attending the Tampa Bay Beaches Chamber of Commerce annual dinner along with a number of city staff last week, which was a nice event. And, the Beaches Chamber of Commerce represents beach communities all up and down the beach, not just St. Pete Beach. And right here in St. Pete Beach, the Tradewinds Resort won their environmentally friendly business of the year for the entire Beaches Chamber of Commerce, which I thought was really nice. And they called out the fact that they have employees that have organized trash pickup days, and they do such a nice job of educating their guests. And they've had lots of employee projects where they've planted sea oats and that sort of thing. And so I think it's great that we have, people in our community helping take care of the beach that way. So I just wanted to give them props for that. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.